Hello, and welcome to the Small Quiet Voice Conversation. My name is Shannon Joy McKeel. I'm the author of You Have Arrived and the founder of SJM Consulting Services. Today, I have with me a very special woman coming from the middle of Kansas in the United States, and her name is Michelle Spexarth. Michelle is a certified life coach, a narcissist survivor, and most importantly, she has homeschooled 5 children for the past 17 years. She also offers a workshop online called Victim to Victor, helping clients gain clarity, confidence, and build genuine connection for meaningful support. Michelle specializes in helping people get out of the brain fog and confusion created from trauma, narcissistic abuse, and extreme stress. Michelle, welcome to the SQV.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm glad to be here.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. It's the day after a holiday, so it's fantastic.
Yeah, good. Yeah, we're in Tampa, in the Tampa Bay area, and in Florida every day it rains. So we are in a torrential downpour. So if you hear lightning and thunder, don't get alarmed. Or my dog freaking out. Let's hope that all that is fine. But so Michelle, tell our viewers a little bit about your life, your career, your kids. I want to hear all about that.
Okay. Well, I will start with telling you that my parents divorced when I was 4. My father was physically abusive when we were small. My mom remarried when I was 8, and I did not understand pretty much anything about that world of being a stepkid or anything like that. I believe that he is a narcissist. And so they trained me well. I tried to fit into all the boxes and do all the things to make the people happy so that I could have a happy life. However, I became in high school, I was just like, I'm sick of this. There's no making these people happy. And so I left the day after graduation. And I went and lived in my car for 2 weeks, driving around the countryside, doing whatever fun stuff I decided to do. And then I went to college for a little while after that. I continuously got into relationships that were not great. Alcoholism, cocaine abuse, pot, whatever, it just seemed like that was the kind of people that I picked. So when I met the husband that I was married to for 18 years and had my 5 children with, he seemed pretty great. I didn't see any addictions or anything there, but it was the underlying thing of the narcissism that started coming out more and more and more over the years. And so at year 15, I was just sure that if I could make myself better, that he would be happy. And that was not the way it worked out. I came to a place where I felt like I am either going to kill myself or I'm going to leave because I don't know what to do here. So I decided to leave. We did try counseling. We tried all the things. I had a counselor tell me, and this was like a major thing for me, is the counselor, after I told him all of the truths of everything in our relationship, he got this, the way he spoke to me, it was like, Michelle, in order for him to do the things he needs to do, he's going to need serious, heavy counseling. So I told him that, and he's like, I'm not going to do that. And so I got to a point where I was just like, he's not willing to do any work on himself. I'm trying. And so I felt like I have to give up. And so I left. It was very difficult because I'd stayed at home with my children for 18 years and homeschooled them. I did not have an income of my own or anything like that. But I left. My parents were very helpful in getting me set up. And I continued to homeschool, and I had to find a way to continue homeschooling and make an earning. And so I started looking for things and started in this whole process also of working on myself, trying to heal, myself. I didn't want to run into another narcissistic relationship. And so I decided that for a while that I was going to just focus on me and focus on my kids. And so I've spent so much time and so much energy on figuring out what I needed to do to get to a place where I felt healthy and where I felt like I was in control of myself and my body and the emotions and the thoughts and all the things that happen just within me. And then I got to a point where I was just like, other people need help. Other people need help too, because I know how hard it was for me and I know how isolated I felt. And I didn't want them to feel that same way. And so I started helping people that have been through the same thing that I've been through or some rendition of it so that they could go through this process a lot quicker than I did. And that's where I came up with the victim to victor class that I have now, because we do it in 90 days. And we go from what is a narcissist all the way to goal setting and getting clarity and figuring out who you are so that you know what you like. You're never going to be the same person that you were when you first got married or when you left, but you can create who you want to be for your future. And that's what we really focus on, is creating you into the person that you want to be.
Michelle, that's a beautiful story.
Thank you.
I knew this was going to happen. It's exactly like mine in many, many, many ways. When you read my book, it's going to blow your mind. You became a member of Feminist Friday in Clearwater, my online Facebook group, Feminist Friday Clearwater, on June 18th. And we are happy to have you. And we are going to explore a lot of these feminist principles, because what you're doing is rock star feminism. And it's odd, June 18th is my sister's birthday. So my sister and I were 4 and 1 when our parents got divorced. So I think that's interesting that happened on my sister's birthday. But I was just looking through some posts that I put on that page, and you might have seen it. I don't know if you've seen this around. It's a statistic that talks about how many people, the average marriage lasts 8 years in this country. And the average, most women, right, if they're in a marriage after that, the statistic said most women, I can't remember the percentage, but most are there because they're financially reliant on their spouse, not because they love their spouse. And that was the case for me. I was done. And I got a divorce. We had been together 18 years and we had 3 children together. And I couldn't work. There wasn't much of that time, 7 years of it off and on, that it didn't make sense for me to go to work because I had too much childcare costs. And I really wanted to enjoy them as babies too. And I just didn't feel comfortable in some circumstances with leaving my babies in the care of others. And so these are the problems, right? These are the issues that mothers go through. And whether you have 1 or 5 or more children, it doesn't get any easier depending on your life circumstances, right? What would be, based on what you just told me and based on, what I believe is really important. In this constructs of this marriage where I wasn't being abused and I wasn't being hurt, I could take some time and invest in my education. And that's what set me free, because I was able to get my bachelor's degree through the University of Phoenix, all about that marketing. That's really who I was and who I am still. I'm a scrappy little gal that just was like, I got to do better for me and my kids. So what advice would you give to women or men if they're the one that isn't working and staying home with a child, because that happens? Or maybe they're in a same-sex marriage and one works and the other one stays home because that person makes so much money. There's all kinds of different dynamics. So what advice would you give to that dependent type of spouse if they think that they need to eventually leave? Like, what would be your overall arch, and how did you negotiate that? I want to circle back to that.
So for me, I did not plan that and prepare that well for myself. I just wanted to get out. But if you see that you are in a position where you are thinking that you need to go, then you do what you need to do. Get the education, start working, figure out something that you can do so that you can save up that money to make it easier when it is time to go, and so that you are not flailing the way I did when I left. Because I have heard so many stories about women that were so smart about doing that. They prepared for the leave. So prepare for the leave, because when you can do that, then you will save yourself so much stress. Because financially, I'll tell you, my kids barely had beds. I wasn't sure where our food was coming from. We went to the food bank all the time. We cut firewood because we had a fireplace, because I couldn't afford propane. You will find a way. It's just that in order to get yourself out in a less stressful way, it's better to prepare yourself financially before you make that move.
Well, thank goodness you had your parents to help you. I didn't have that resource. I've always been on my own. I left home at 18. Just like you did. I didn't get in a car. I joined the military, and that was my way to get out of that environment, because it wasn't healthy for me. And I get that. We have no dad. I had no dad the last 4 years last 3 years, solid 3 years before I graduated. My dad disowned us, and my sister and I both. But it's a lot. But I was able to find something that was a healthy place for me to go, and I learned so much about people and myself when I was in the service. I want to circle back to, though, if a woman needs to leave, I want to tell our viewers and assure them that whatever you have to do to get safe is what you need to do. I had a dog that we adopted when my kids were young, when we lived in Panama City, and that dog had come from a woman who was with a man who was absolutely certain that he was going to kill that dog, and probably her, because he was so violent and so many drugs, and it was just a toxic situation. So she had to relinquish her dog to a friend to find the dog a new home, because she was trying to stay to try to make a home for her and her dog. So it doesn't have to be a child. Like, if you can't go into a shelter because you have a dog, there's so many shelters that you can take obviously your children, but they're your dogs. Dogs are so important to your healing. So you want to have that pet with you, or cat, whatever, bird, I don't care. That's an animal that you love, and you need those animals with you. So try to find shelters that have accommodations for your pets. But if you don't, get out. Get out and be okay and be safe, because there's so much domestic violence that occurs, and women know what's going to happen if they stay. And sometimes they have to stay, but they don't ever have to stay, right? That security, that financial, whatever, if you're not safe, you get the hell out.
Your physical safety is the first and utmost important thing. And if you are not physically safe,
or your children, or your
children, yes. It's so funny, because for me, when I say me, my me is me and my children. And so it's so funny, because I'll say, I'll be there. Well, that doesn't mean just me. That means me and my entourage. We will be there, because they are a part of us so much. And I have 2 dogs. That's part of mine too. So yes, get yourself safe. That you have, because the first primary need of a human is our physical needs. And we have to make ourselves safe. And sometimes it doesn't look exactly the way you want it to look. Maybe you have to move in with somebody first, and maybe you have to have somebody pet sit your dog for a few months or something until you can get yourself. Think outside the box. Because when you can think outside the box and you really start looking at what you have for resources, use the resources. Because so many times we don't use the resources that we have because of what we think it's going to look like, or how we're going to feel about it, or because they'll never say yes, but you never asked. Ask. Because, and that's part of the abuse too, is that we don't ask because we feel like nobody's going to be on our side. And in reality, so many people are on your side.
Yeah.
And
for me, For me, I was really I befriended and sang in choirs of many churches in that area where I lived when I got my divorce. And my church that I had attended and I sang at quite extensively, they came to my aid. They gave me money for Christmas presents. The church that I had been attending, after I moved, they were also helpful. They helped me with my power bills. There were many times that I had to go to the food bank, but you've just got to figure things out. And there are places around, and you can Google just about anything, but churches are a wonderful resource. So I tell people that on Facebook, I'm like, go to the church that's down the road from you. They have money set aside for this type of thing. So there's so many great resources. And I don't want to talk about, the past, but I do think that those are really important lessons. And I think that we can learn from them. And we want to make sure that women are empowered to know that they can do it on their own if they have to. So moving into the present moment, you and I have partnered in some pretty dynamic ways over the past month, and I'm excited about those. But talk a little bit about your online victim to victor workshop and what that looks like and why you've been doing it and why you thought that was so important. And then let's talk a little bit about how we're using those same type of principles for what we're doing with the SJM umbrella.
Right. Okay. So one thing that I notice when I go into the groups, either on Facebook or a lot of other groups, is that they focus on the narcissist behavior and they focus on how they've been hurt and all of these things. And that's great. We need to be validated. We absolutely need the validation so that we can actually get our minds wrapped around what we've been through. I focus on past that. I'm focusing on, because I know that you can get those resources wherever else. So what our class focuses on is we do talk about, what is the narcissist? We look at how it has affected your life. And then from there, what we do is we start rebuilding your self-confidence, how you feel about yourself, your worthiness, what you like, and what works for you. And we do it in an extremely exploratory way because we put so much focus on right and wrong when truly is there, just because you like or dislike something doesn't make it right or wrong. And so I feel like when we open up our minds to be able to just say, I like that, it's not right or wrong, I just like that, then we are able to sit more within ourselves and feel more empowered within ourselves. And so that's what this work is for, is to help us to feel empowered within ourselves. And then once we are doing that, then we can move into goal setting for ourselves. And so we can set whatever goals that you want. Maybe it's buying a house. Maybe it's just moving out and being on your own, whether you're renting or whatever. Or, maybe it's going for the big stuff. You want to make $1 million a year or $100,000 a year or even 50 a year. All of that, it depends on the person and where they're sitting at that moment as to what their goals are going to be. And so we move you through this process in order to get you to the goal setting phase so that you can start moving forward in leaps and bounds. And it's focused on 90 days because it's totally doable compared to 5 or 6 years like I took.
Yeah. To have a little bit of guidance and help and mentorship from someone that's been through it is super valuable. So you and I have been down some pretty dynamic conversations over the past couple of weeks. So how are you bringing this specialty isms? I don't think that's a word, but we're going to pretend it is.
It is now.
How are you bringing your dynamic help of individuals into a corporate setting, and I don't know if you've given any thought to this beyond this trauma class we're doing, but what other ways are you hoping that you can touch corporate America, and make sure that people are kind of treating people okay, and we're dealing with the narcissistic behavior, and it's such an interesting concept to me. So tell me more about that.
Okay, so the way I view this is that so many times we get in other people's business. And that is our big problem, is that we're so busy focused on other people and what they're doing that we're not looking at what we're doing. And so I feel like what we the direction that we need to go is we need to go into a direction where we can have a good neutral conversation with another person, and we can be respectful of them, they're respectful of us, and we can have enough of our own agency that we're okay if they don't agree with us or if they have a different perspective of us. And I feel like when we can teach people to just be okay in their own skin and not feel like everybody else has to agree with what we're doing, or we're going to be offended, or whatever other word we want to put to it, but we're okay enough in our own skin that we give other people their own space to be whatever they are choosing to be too. And I feel like the other part of it is choices. Because so many times I hear people say, well, I didn't have a choice. We always have a choice. We just our minds get into that panic mode and we feel forced into a place. But when we can bring ourselves back into ourselves and we can realize that we are in charge of us, then we can allow people their choices. We get our choices and we don't feel so boxed in to I had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like in the corporate world that we want to do what our boss tells us, or we want to follow what everybody else is doing. You may have an amazing idea that just needs to be voiced, and you need to feel strong enough within yourself and safe enough that you can voice that in a way that can be heard.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote some really cool things down. So I'm just pleased that you see that. We probably need to get off the phone and have some more conversations about how you can be in the role, because something just sparked. So I feel as if what you bring to the table is so intensely maternal. You have 5 children and their ages are
21 to 11.
Okay.
21,
Yeah,
19, 16, 14, and 11.
Yeah. So I've talked to a lot of leaders over the past year, and a lot of corporate companies. They believe that that our country, because our problems in the United States are really based on our culture of burnout, which I talk about in my book. I answer all those questions about Industrial Revolution and what we missed as we were developing our country. And I know why those problems have occurred. The United States has a unique set of problems because we have a culture of burnout based on the legislation that was passed over 100 years ago. So as we look at that culture of burnout, there is something missing. And it is because men have created our infrastructure. It is because men have been the bosses, and they haven't really taken into account what women need, what mothers need. And so what we need at this point is to kind of rise above that and give these guys a check and say, you know what? That doesn't honor women. That doesn't honor our children. That doesn't honor families. In our corporate settings, we need moms. And I'm really excited that you're at the point in your life that you can start pouring some of these things that you've learned as a mom into corporate America, because I'm telling you, Michelle, this is what they need. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, so I want to add here, because this is what came up for me when you said that, is that men follow the stereotype that they have to be the breadwinner, they have to be the manly man, they have to be all of these societal things that have been put before them. And sometimes that does not allow them the space to be the dad that they really feel like they want to be deep down in their soul.
Our time and energy are finite. And, my husband currently, he'll work constantly if you let him. He wants to be the provider, but being the provider is more than just earning a paycheck.
Exactly. And it's so funny because I think about how they are in that role, and I do believe that it is shifting. But I feel like when we don't work with each other and see the strengths of the male and the female, that we miss out as a society as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're going to love my book. The
Okay.
last
Good.
chapter I wrote while in Barbie. So I don't know if you saw the Barbie movie. I saw it twice.
I love the Barbie movie.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
Good.
No, let's just go change the world. So Michelle, we need to wrap this up. This has been absolutely glorious and such a telling time for us as colleagues. And I'm so happy that we were able to connect in this very valuable way because we've shared some pretty cool concepts. And I think men and women both are going to dig this interview.
I think so too.
Any final thoughts you'd like to offer, or do you want to tell people more about how they can maybe find you on some of those social channels you were referring to?
Okay. Well, I feel like I'm everywhere. I am on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I have a free Facebook group that's called Soul Survivors Heal from Narcissistic Abuse, Trauma, and PTSD. I think I said I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably it. So you can find me almost anywhere. I just stick to Michelle Spexarth, so you can find me. And I'm trying to think of any little tidbits of anything. This came up for me this morning, is the first step to change is to be aware of what we are doing. And once we know what we're doing, then we can start changing it into what we intentionally want to do to make our impact in the world.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's emotional intelligence. That's how Laura Lynn would describe it.
Yes.
And you've got that, girl. And I am so appreciative that you're on my team. So with
I'm
that,
excited.
I will say farewell, and we'll see each other soon. And I appreciate you, and namaste.
Namaste.
Bye-bye.